All right, man. Welcome. I don't know what day it is, Jeff, but I got Jeff Mathis in the
Friday.
house. Jeff, welcome to the Lions Den, man.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, man. I've been trying to track you down for a long time, bro. The savvy veteran, the savvy vet, man. Jeff Mathis, man, hailing from the great state of Florida.
That's right.
And you said you are a Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan.
Yes,
I'm sorry about it,
I
bro.
know it's been a rough few years, actually more than a few, but I don't know. I'm a little closer to Jacksonville and even closer to Atlanta, but I don't know. I was drawn to the Bucks when I first started becoming a fan and understanding what it's all about.
Man, man, I don't even know where to start with you, bro, because for you, you're a veteran in what some people call the toughest game. You know what I'm saying? On the earth. Some people call it the toughest game on the earth. Some people say that hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do. You know,
I would agree to that.
it is tough. And not only that, but you are a catcher. You're playing a very high profile premium position in which you have to manage, your pitching staff, and you're almost like a bridge between the position players and the pitchers. What is one thing? First of all, how long you been playing for the people out there, man? How long exactly?
In the big leagues for this is my 15th season.
Dang,
About
man.
13 years of service time.
Wow.
Professionally since 2001. I'm trying to do that math real quick. About 19 years, maybe.
19 years, man. Man. And considering, less than 20,000 people have ever even played this game. That's impressive, man. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. I've been
man.
blessed. There's no doubt about it.
What is behind that plate, man? What is the most important thing that you've ever learned, man, in all these years of playing? What's the most important lesson as you sit in that seat right now? What is the most important lesson that you've learned? The biggest thing that you've taken away?
I think just how to relate to people and how to handle people and just the different types of people that come in and out of this game.
We've been we jokingly say, man. I jokingly say sometimes, man, we've been blessed to work with all types. If you are going to create, a catcher of the future, what qualities does that catcher have to have, and what traits he does he better just leave at home because it's not going to serve him well?
Uh, I think number one is patience because of what we just talked about, like the different types of personalities and people that you have to deal with on that mound, that you have to deal with while you're learning the position and trying to teach you how to do this and become a big league catcher and professional catcher. But um, I think the patience comes next. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Uh, being able to decipher two different things because our job is just as important on the defensive side as it is on the offensive side. So being able to balance out those two um, are it's imperative.
Mm-hmm. So I have a very generic question, but I think it's a very deep question. You've been doing this for almost 2 decades, man. Um, you just said you have to have patience. You know what I'm saying? It's a game of failures. Uh, and I think you just concurred that hitting the baseball is one of the hardest thing to do. I heard it once. I was just sharing with someone earlier, and this is debatable that it's impossible to to control the human spirit. It's impossible to do so. And all you can do is lead them, set a good example for them, and help develop them. And my question to you is the very generic question that I think is deep is, dude, how have you done it, man? Like, how do you keep coming back? You know what I'm saying? How do you forge together and put a career for almost 20 years at the highest level? How do you do it, man?
Well, I think it was when I first started understanding it and knowing how important it was. It was like a job, and it still is a job, but like I didn't enjoy it to the extent that I enjoy it now. Like I honestly, get pleasure out of being able to get on the same page, gain trust, and um, just really knowing that I have that guy's back. Those things, I come to where I find joy in that, and that's one thing that allows me to keep coming back and stay focused and stay on top of the things that you needed to stay on top of to be able to do that.
That's good, man. So that joy, that energy, that's coming from within, coming from a different place, that's fueling you. In just previous discussions with you, I think one of the things that is very apparent in dealing with you is that you're a man of order. You're a man of responsibility. Responsibility is something that's very important to you. That speaks to your leadership style. What is the one thing that you cannot stand in terms of being a professional, in terms of something that just says, you know what, man, that don't play here?
Man, putting that into one word, that's pretty tough. I would say being considerate of the others around you. And I think that's a pretty broad word and description, but I just feel like if you're considerate of everybody else around you, then you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, being the places that you're supposed to be at, and working, and I don't know, just putting in the work and the want to be a good teammate, to be a good ball player, and I don't know. I guess if I had to put it in one sense, that would be it.
Being considerate. People who aren't considerate, that's what gets you.
Yeah.
Being a great example yourself, who are some people that, as you were coming up, who are 2 or 3 players coming up that really impacted and shaped you, and you would say that, you know what, man, I really learned a lot from that guy?
Well, I'd have to say Sosha being one, Mike Sosha. Although it wasn't that great while we were together, and didn't appreciate the things that I was learning at the time, but definitely have understood why and when and how he was the way he was back then, because a lot of those reasons and things he was trying to tell me back then are a lot of the reasons, and I don't know. It's the reason that I'm still around. But as far as player standpoint, I think being able to watch Darren Erstad was one that stuck out in my mind. I don't think we got to play together on the field during the big league season, but in big league camp, I got to be around him a lot, and a lot of times that's where all the work goes into, making the season happen, is in spring training, and watching the way he went about his business day in and day out, and February and March, definitely helped me with, knowing how to do it, understanding how to be a big leaguer, and understanding how to get ready for a game every day.
Yeah.
So that's one that comes to mind. There's so many
There's so
faces,
many, man.
so many faces popping into my head right now with so many different examples.
That's good. No, you can drop, as we keep going, man. You can drop those if they come to my mind. If they come to your mind, what throughout your career, you've experienced success, you've experienced failure. You've been on great teams, you've been on mediocre teams, and you've been on poor performing teams, right? What is the toughest thing, on the field, off the field, that you have ever had to endure, man? Like you say, you know what, man, that was a tough time in my life, man.
I mean, I think from a baseball standpoint, as far as my professional career, I mean, the loss of life, you talk about I lost grandfathers during seasons. I've lost teammates during seasons. So, I mean, losing a teammate was probably one of the hardest things outside of losing, a family member. So,
yeah,
I mean, dealing with the grandparents' death, and then dealing with two teammates' death during the season was, I don't know if it gets any worse than that.
Yeah, that's tough, man. With that said, it's one of those things where as time goes on, um, unfortunately, we have to experience that more. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And what would be during those tough times that you just mentioned? What would be the gold, right, that you were able to extract from that and say, you know what, man, like this was tough, but man, like I took this and it's making me a better person, or it has made me a better person.
Yeah, I think being able to cope with, because I was somebody that kept everything inside,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned. It took me a while to learn, but we've talked about, God bless his soul. Ken Revisa was one of the first ones to allow me to understand that it's not good for you to deal with everything by yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I when I left him in Anaheim, I didn't really like fully grasp it, or I guess really believe him. Although I think I felt things that I knew to be true, but
Mm-hmm.
until I went through stuff like that, I didn't understand that, like, keeping it all in and trying to deal with it, internally isn't a thing that can happen for me personally. Like,
Yeah.
being able to, knowing that you have to lean on somebody else and lean on your brothers, lean on your teammates, one another to get through those tough times is something that I think it has really helped me, and something that I, going through these tough times, in the future and in the present, would help me, with advice for others during those times.
No, that's good. And I want to ask you a question before the question. So, would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert, or a little bit of both?
I'd say a little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
I think I'm a mix.
Okay. Because the reason I ask is because a lot of times I think society we have it twisted, right? It's like, oh man, he's an introvert. He has nothing to say, right? And I don't know if you agree with this. I mean, you dealing with people as a catcher. I mean, as a catcher, you're in the people business. I
Mm-hmm.
would love to hear your thoughts on this. One of the things that I've noticed is that introverts actually have the most to say because they're doing more watching and they're doing more listening than the extroverts. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
when you sit them down and you square them up, you know what I'm saying? Like they can talk to you for hours if they have a safe environment. Whereas the extrovert, they're always talking. So it's just like they're always getting things off of their chest. You know what I'm saying? And those tough times that you mentioned, an introvert, if they're not careful, they will bottle that thing up, man, and it will explode at the most, you know, inappropriate of times
Oh
or
yeah.
the most unexpected of times. I would love for you to add to that, man. Your thoughts.
Well, I don't know if it'll make sense, but like, I feel like, no, and I totally agree with you about an introvert, because my mind works 1,000 to nothing, and I feel like I'm thankful for that type of mentality and that mentality that I had early, because I was one to always watch and listen, do more watching and listening than I did talking, and I'm thankful that my parents kind of either brought me up that way, or is it just a characteristic that I got from them.
Mm-hmm.
But breaking into this league, watching the people that I had in front of me and ahead of me to be able to teach me how to do it, like, it was just way more beneficial to me to watch and listen than to run my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I picked up a lot more from that. But moving it along to Hyde, the Jekyll and Hyde part of it is like, if you sit there and you think about it too much, or you have this knowledge that you've gained for years or for months or whatever the case may be, and you know that something that you've seen or you've heard is right, then why wouldn't you share it? Why wouldn't you be
Mm-hmm.
that extrovert and get it out, and in a situation that would be beneficial to others too? So I guess that's kind of like the yin and yang, or the Jekyll and Hyde part of it.
And that makes sense with how you mediate it because you said you're a mixture of both. Um.
Because there's not a lot of times where I want to, like, that's not my style.
Mm-hmm.
It's not talking and opening up in front of a group, or in our meetings or whatever.
Right.
It's more like, when it, like, now as a veteran and as somewhat of a leader, it's like, that stuff has to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I was younger, it was just like, oh shit, I'm
Mm-hmm.
continuing to listen. Like, I know I saw something wrong, but I'm just gonna listen and see how it plays out because I'm not in a situation to
Mm-hmm.
necessarily, say something. Whereas now it's like I've seen it before. I see it now, and I know it's wrong now.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's time for me to, help make it right or help point somebody in the right direction.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. That's rich. I couldn't agree more with you, man. I would love to get your opinion about this. So you're old school dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would consider yourself old school, right?
Yeah.
So, it doesn't matter what the domain is. It doesn't matter what, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't matter what, yeah, domain, right? It doesn't matter if we're talking, pro sports. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the tech industry. It doesn't matter if we're talking about, education, right? You always have the old and the new, right? Which one's better? This
Mm-hmm.
one's fresher. This one has more ideas. This one, is sparkly and it's glittery. Whereas the old regime, the people from the old school, like, nah, this is what works. This is how you power through tough times. This is tried and tested. This is proven, right? What is one thing? And this is a two-sided question here. What is one thing that the young players coming up need to learn and must learn as an old school guy? Like, what is one thing that you say, no matter how old you are, you better get this right?
Well, I think it's something that starts beyond this game. It's and the word's respect.
There you go.
Like you you respect who came before you, your mom, your dad, your brothers, whatever
Mm-hmm.
the case may be, and you respect them. And I'm not saying that baseball is the same as your intertwined family, but like that's where it comes from. You respect them and the way they did it and the way they came about and how they're teaching you. Like I feel like it's kind of similar over here, whereas that's something that this generation's getting away from is they don't understand that how many came before them and what they had to endure to
Mm-hmm.
be where they were at, and the things that these guys these days are getting now and the treatment that they're getting now is so much different than the others. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy that they don't necessarily have to go through the things that some of the older players had to go through,
Mm-hmm.
but like at the same time there should be a greater level of respect for the ones that that went and did it before them,
You gotta have respect.
that laid the groundwork.
No, I'm with you there, man. I think that's the biggest thing. Is one of the biggest things for me is respect. I think when you violate that, you are in error. You are in error. You know what I'm saying? Um, Man, as we get ready to close, you have an entire room, right, of young bucks coming up, and you get a chance to give them your words of wisdom, one pearl.
Hmm.
Say, Jeff, hey man, you can talk about anything, but you can only talk about one thing. You got one shot to give us one pearl. You got 1,000 young players coming up that are going to be professionals. What are you telling them?
Hmm. I I think it's kind of along those same lines. I mean, yeah, but I guess more what's popping into my mind more is the opportunity that is in front of you, and not thinking that it's something that's guaranteed and that'll be there the next day because whether you're a top prospect or you know somebody that drafts in the 40th round. I mean, there's at some point y'all both have the same opportunity, but there's nothing that's guaranteed to either one of you because of injury, because of lack of production, because of this. It's something that I think if you take it one day at a time and knowing that that's your opportunity, that I feel like you're going to be more successful because of that. Not that you're going to be able to be back next year or
Mm-hmm.
next week or next month or this, that, and the other. It's like there's nothing in this game that's guaranteed, and you keep that mindset.
Shoot, life
Keep
ain't
you in the
guaranteed.
right. That's exactly right.
Any regrets throughout your whole career? Any regrets right now? Is there anything that you say, man, I wish I would have done this, man, or man, I wish I never did that, man?
Uh, I mean, I wish I would have. Hmm.
That's a tough one.
That's a real tough one.
You got to dig deep on that one, man.
I think I wish I wouldn't have been so hard on myself.
Mhm.
Like my biggest critic and my biggest enemy. Like understanding what I know now and how powerful that the mind and the brain and all that is. Like that, there's a point where you got to step back and you got to take a deep breath and understand that it's a game of failure and that shit's gonna happen. And being able to handle that is something that I wasn't good at earlier in my career, and one reason that I feel like I had struggled at certain times because I was beating myself up along with getting beat up by 95-mile-an-hour fastballs and sliders and shit.
Yeah, that's real. What in terms of like your mental framework, what is the one thing, whether it's visualization, you mentioned breathing real quick, how you talk to yourself, what is the one thing that you have done that has worked for you in getting Jeff Mathis to perform like Jeff Mathis knows he can perform?
The breathing was a big part of it once I realized that, and that's more from a defensive standpoint. It's something that I relate to better defensively, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because there's more confidence behind the plate, and that breathing can happen and settle me down quicker than when I'm in the box. I've tried to use that same method, but it's worked at times, but not as consistently as it does as far as calming me down and getting me back to that place where I need to be to move better, be better, and also knowing that like less is more. I know that's pretty cliche, but it's like me trying to operate in sixth gear is way worse than me trying to operate in fourth gear. Like knowing that adrenaline is going to take over when that real time happens. And I guess a good example is like me throwing from behind the plate, trying to throw a guy out. It's like if I'm trying to operate my mind in sixth gear and hopefully my body follows it, that never really works out. It's like, my mind works in fourth gear and then that adrenaline takes me into that fifth gear. And then a lot of times that's when I'm at my best.
That's great, man. That's great. This is the last question, or it's not even a question. This is just open mic, man. Is there anything, baseball or otherwise, that you want to share or that's been on your heart a lot lately that you think might encourage somebody out there listening to this today? You say, you know what, man, I've been thinking about this a lot, as I reflect, as I think, as I go about my day as a professional, and I feel like, this can help somebody.
I don't know. I keep thinking about like what the question you asked me, being considerate, being accountable. Those are the two things that I was going back and forth of what to answer with. I think it was the first or second question, but I mean those two things, like being accountable for your actions and being considerate to those that are around you, are things that I think could help out any ball player, any person in this game. And I mean the ultimate thing is, you want to be the best you can on the field, but I feel like, there's other things that can keep you around too. It's like you be a good teammate, you be a good person, you help others out in that clubhouse, and that's something that I feel strongly about, and I feel like could help give somebody else a different insight on how to be around and how to be a big leaguer and how to, I don't know, stick around for a minute.
That's good, man. Well, you've done it. You know what I'm saying? And Jeff, man, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you again, man, for coming in. I'm gonna go back and listen to it. I think for me, I think what you dropped is like, it's nuts and bolts, man. It's meat and potatoes, baby. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, the meat and potatoes is what leads to longevity, and you're an embodiment of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You've had a great career, and here you are today, baby. You know what I'm saying? Still cashing them checks, baby. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
That's right. Still running my old ass out there.
Let's go, man. Hey, man, thanks again for coming, man. Before we close, man, you gotta do the honors, man.
Let me hit that thing.
There you go, AC. Hey, the savvy veteran. I had a couple guys in here try to destroy that thing. That's how you do it right there, man.
Less is more. Less is more.
Appreciate you, bro. Thanks.